Welcome, I'm back, and I'll take you further down the road of my adventures. After I got the news that Jimmy was going to be convicted and going off to federal prison, I began my search for another job. Because normally, when a leader leaves an organization, everybody that was privy to his travels and contacts also gets let go. So I sent out a lot of applications, and one in particular that I found in the Washington Post was for pilots in Southeast Asia. Well, I fired one off to them, and nothing happened. Well, I was back in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., and in the office, and I called this office number, and an H.H. Dawson answered the phone, and he was not too jovial. He said, "We're not hiring right now." Well, I figured that's a dead horse. So 3 or 4 days later, I was down in the Lakefront Airport in Chicago, Meigs Field, and I got a call come to the airport manager's office. When I got there, they said there's a call from Mr. Dawson for you. Well, I picked up the extension, and he was all jovial and saying, "Captain Hanson, you still interested in working for us?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "I got two questions for you. Can you fly good?" Well, it was awfully tempting to say the wreckage is still burning, but I didn't. And his next question was, "Do you drink a lot?" And perhaps this is a requirement, but I said, "No, sir." And he says, "Can you be ready to go in a week?" I said, "Well, when will I know if I'm hired?" And he said, "Oh, you're hired." I said, "Well, how about 2 weeks so I can give my employer proper notice and he can get a replacement for me?" And he says, "Okay, go back to Detroit, get yourself a passport and 20 one-by-one pictures and send it to me so I can get your visas." I said, "Okay, sir, I'll do that." And I did. I went down to the passport office the next day and filled out all their things and brought my birth certificate and photos and uh, completed all of that thing. And I said, "Now, when will I get this passport?" They said, "Well, it'll be 2 weeks to 3, 4 weeks. Why do you need that?" And I said, "Well, I got a job starting in less than 2 weeks overseas." And they asked me, "Well, who are you going to go to work for?" And I said, "Air America." I had that passport in 4 days, which kind of told me something funny is going on in the back room. And on one of the last trips I flew with the Teamsters Union, I had a load of lawyers on board, and the co-pilot was in the back serving drinks. And one of them came up to the cockpit and said, "We hear you're leaving us." And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Where are you going to go to work?" And I said, "Air America." And he laughed and he says, "Oh, yeah, that's the CIA." Well, that brought visions of the old comic strip Terry and the Pirates and the new James Bond novels that were coming out. But the reality was far, far from that scenario. As the days rolled on and I came down to the launch time, and in the mail I'd gotten a nice big fat envelope with a check for $50 to cover my expenses en route and airline tickets as far as Taipei, Taiwan. And these tickets were first class. I said, "Wow, I've never ridden that way before. I was always in the back of the bus." But loaded on Northwest Orient in Detroit and flew as far as Minneapolis and then refueled and then flew to Anchorage, Alaska and refueled there and got to view the damage from the earthquake that they'd had there. And then off to Tokyo, Japan after they filled that bird with motion lotion and got to cruising altitude in first class. This was really a treat. Better food and all the booze you wanted. In fact, the stewardess brought a fifth of scotch back and sat it on the table next to me. And next to me in the other seat was Jack Oyer, who'd retired out of the Navy and was going to go to work for Air America too. Okay, this is great. And one fellow that never did join in the conversations who had been a smoke jumper, and he sat up in seats in front of us. And he was going overseas to work as a load master, or what we commonly called a kicker, handling the cargo in the cabin. And he had been a smoke jumper, as I mentioned, and from Missoula, Montana. And he just was not very communicative at all. We got into Tokyo, and there we were met after getting through customs by a little Japanese man with a gray uniform on and a Volkswagen bus. And we rode that Volkswagen bus down to the New Japan Hotel. Now, I had not been in the Far East before, but this was really kind of a treat. The room I had was very nice, extremely nice. But it was still early in the morning, so I was looking around for maybe lunch. And I went down to the lobby, and all these stores were aligned in the lobby of the clothing and everything else, flowers. And there was one little place was a restaurant. I guess might call it a coffee shop. However, none of the signs had any English on them. So I ventured over to this one that had pictures of food on the front of it, and went in. And I saw a fellow over in the corner eating a bowl of noodles with chopsticks, and that looked pretty good. So I pointed to a picture of that, and the waitress, she kind of giggled at me because I was just pointing and gesturing to what I wanted. And she brought me a bowl of that, and along with chopsticks. And she loitered there behind the counter, waiting for the show that I would put on by flipping noodles into my ears and things like that. But prior to departing Detroit, I went down to a Chinese restaurant and practiced with chopsticks and how to eat noodles out of a bowl. And I just blew her away when I was adept at that. And she giggled and went away. That first bowl of noodles was really good. So I ordered another one, and I saw a picture of beer, Sapporo beer. And I thought, wow, that looks awfully good too. So I ordered one of those, and it was served in an icy cold mug. And I thought that was wonderful. So the second bowl of noodles and beer went down fast. And at that time, I was starting to get drowsy from the long trip and went back up to the room and called it a day. And we'll carry on with this story a little bit later. Thank you.